Good evening. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, February 6, 2019. This is a public hearing of the Town of Speedway Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm Mike Simonson, Chairman of the Board. Board members in attendance tonight are Mike Allen, our Vice Chairman, Janet Fullen, and Steve Jones, members of the Board. We also have Tim Ramian with us, our Recording Secretary, and representing the Indianapolis Department of Metropolitan Development Planning Division is Ms. Kathleen Blackham. Have all who wish to speak been sworn in?
They have.
Thank you. Will all please mute or turn off any cell phones at this time? Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Rules for those who wish to speak. The petitioner and remonstrator or proponents will each have 15 minutes to present their case. After that, we will hear from Ms. Blackham from DMD. After her presentation, petitioner, remonstrators, or proponents will have a 5-minute rebuttal period. First order of business tonight is to establish our board positions for 2019.
I would like to make a motion to keep the positions as they currently are.
I have a motion. Have a second?
Second.
Second. Motion to keep our positions for this year the same as they were for 2018. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Tonight's petitions, we have 2 petitions. Our first one is 2019 DVS 001, 1 Allison Way, or Allison Transmission. Will the petitioner or their representative please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
Chairman, members of the board, for the record, Tim Oakes, attorney at Ice Miller with offices at 1 American Square, Suite 2900, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46282-0200. Here this evening on behalf of Allison Transmission. Also with me this evening is Michael Serduke of NSA Architects, who has designed the building that is the subject of the 2 development standard variances before you, who is available to answer any question that the board might have. This particular request is to allow for 2 development standard variances involving a new building to be constructed on the Allison Transmission campus. What I've passed out is it's not any new information. Actually, it's already part of your package, but I printed these out. I think they're a little bit easier to see, a little bit perhaps clearer, so I hope that helps out. The first is an aerial, and if you look at the aerial, you'll see in the yellow box the main Allison Transmission campus, and you'll see then inside that in a blue box the approximate location of the new building. This building is about 130 by 240 feet in terms of its footprint, and is proposed to be just a little under 50 feet in height, with an encroachment due to some stairs and mechanical equipment. This building will be a state-of-the-art vehicle environmental testing building, and its purpose is to allow trucks and vehicles the size of buses to drive into the building. The temperature will be raised to extreme levels or lowered to extreme levels. After last week, that's probably a good thing. And then the vehicles can be run for extended period of time to evaluate how the vehicles operate and perform under those extreme conditions. And it will include the testing of military vehicles as well, and how the transmissions perform in those vehicles. The building will be extremely expensive in large degree because of the mechanical equipment necessary to raise temperatures to such a high degree and to such a low degree for such a large area. All of that will happen in the building. And honestly, that is one of the reasons why the building is designed the way it is, which is to have less than 50% of the exterior being comprised of brick, stone, precast concrete panels, wood, the requirements of the SZ2 zoning district. The metal siding is more adaptable to this building and handles the temperature and the changes far, far better than any of the materials that would otherwise be required. We can't put some on, and we have, and we did that because we wanted the building to match the buildings that exist in the area. And quite frankly, my client might kick me for it. If you look at what will be north of this building, I think this building actually looks better than what it will actually end up covering. Because it's tucked up on the south side of the Allison transmission facility, this building will not be visible at all from 10th Street, which means it will not impact any of the surrounding property owners at all. Then to the south, you've got Castle and then the river and the trees that are along it. So except for someone that's traveling on Castle, you're not really even going to see this building. So the impact will be very minimum in terms of what happens. The other development standard variance we're requesting is to eliminate what would have been required landscaping around this building. And we're doing that for two reasons. One, both are very pragmatic. One, if we put landscaping in around this building, given the amount of blacktop and parking area around it, we do not think it would survive at all during the summer, so it would be a waste of effort and money. Two, it would take away parking spaces. We're already taking away some parking spaces. We have to. This building has to be adjacent to the main Allison transmission plant. Some of the vehicles that might be going in here, frankly, probably are not street legal, so it has to be adjacent to the plant. So we're already taking away parking spaces that are needed for the employees. We don't want to take away any more, so we're requesting a variance of the landscaping standards. Again, it's not going to be visible from 10th Street and only be slightly visible from Castle. It is still set back about 400 feet from Castle. So I want to publicly thank staff for the work that they did. I have reviewed their staff report and agree with their conclusions and recommendation. So with that, I thank you very much for your time, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Any questions? Steve?
No.
The only question I have is a concern I have that I've got from Tim Gropp, our Economic Development Director, is the address, at least on the plans and everything, is 1 Allison Way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's on the north side of this property. And as far as the location of the building and potential of first responders trying to locate or find it, the building technically faces Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to get the address for that building more directed at its location than just the general site of 1 Allison Way?
For purposes of the proceedings tonight, we use the address of the overall parcel that's reflected in the government records. We have to do that. In terms of making sure that if something happens in this facility, the first responders know where to go, we are more than happy to discuss that and have communications with the Speedway Fire Chief and the Speedway Police Chief. And if we can arrange for something like an address that would make it easier for them to find, we're more than happy to do that.
Okay. Any other questions for the petitioner? No. Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
Is there any remonstrator or proponent for this particular variance? Seeing none, we'll hear from Ms. Blackham with DMD.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Chairperson, Chairman Simonson, members of the board. Kathleen Blackham with the Department of Metropolitan Development, 200 East Washington Street, room 1842. Before I start with my comments, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the county now has a new comprehensive plan that was adopted by the commission in December. So both of these petitions that you're hearing tonight reflects that. On page 2, it talks about the comprehensive plan recommends heavy industrial and then has an overlay of industrial reserve. And then it explains what that heavy industrial typology is. And it actually is very consistent with the SZ2 district and what is permitted in that district. But I did want to call your attention to that because from now on, we will be referencing this new comprehensive plan rather than what I have in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Staff is recommending approval of this, and as Mr. Oakes has indicated, the location is the primary reason that staff believes that these variances, that we're supporting these variances. Again, this building is behind what is along West 10th Street. You won't be able to see it and understand the criteria that's going to be needed in order to make this building function for the purposes that they're building it. So staff is recommending approval of the variance related to the building, exterior building materials. And staff also agrees with Mr. Oakes and the petitioner that landscaping will really struggle on this site if you put it around the building. It's clear that that site is all pavement, and to try to expect plants to survive that, you're expecting too much and they would not survive. So again, staff is recommending approval of the elimination of the landscaping around the building. Staff does like to see landscaping, but in this case, we just don't feel that it is supportable. Again, staff is recommending approval of both of these variances and would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have
No.
Do you know if, like, the question I had regarding the address?
The addresses?
Are there
I know-
more addresses assigned to that parcel, or?
When you look at the
Something-
parcel on the GIS where we pull the information, it says 1 Allison Way. And as Mr. Oakes has indicated, and I'm not sure whether you would be going through the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services. There's a staff person there that does assign addresses that then has the post office, they connect it with the post office, and the post office can then deliver mail there. But at the same time, it would identify for the fire department a location for that. And so, I'm not sure how that works, but I can certainly look into it, whether it would be through the Department of Business and Neighborhood Services or whether it would be through the town of Speedway. But, because I know frequently when we're out here with these petitions, the addresses do not match what is here in Speedway.
Okay.
But if you want me to look into that, I will certainly do that.
If you could, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You have some further comments, Mr.
The
Oakes?
only other comment is I checked with my client, and currently, they have a number of buildings out there. They label the buildings and the entrances
Okay.
with large numbers, and they provide those numbers to Speedway Fire and Police, and they'll be doing this for this building as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on the behalf of this variance? Seeing none, we'll now vote on the variance. All right.
In regards to petition 2019 DVS 001, it passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Next on our agenda is 2019 DBS 002, 4300 West 10th Street, Sebring Speedway LLC / Able Motorsports. Petitioner or their representative, please step to the podium and state your name and address for our record.
Good evening. I'm Mike Sells. I'm with Cruise Consulting. Our offices are located at 7384 Business Center Drive in Avon. I'm here before you this evening on behalf of the petitioner, and we are requesting 2 variances of development standards, but before we address that, I think it would be appropriate that we address the request for the variance of notice. What had happened was we received the mailing information the day that it was due to go out, and by the time we received that information, got back to the office, we were preparing 40 certified mailings, and we didn't get to the post office in time, so we sent them the following morning. So instead of 23 days prior notice, we got them out 22 days prior to the date of the hearing, and so we formally request a variance or waiver of that notice requirement.
All in favor of approving a request for a one-day waiver on the notice, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm before you this evening on behalf of the petitioner. That's Speedway, Sebring Speedway, and I have a representative of that firm. It's Mr. Brent Reike, and he's driven in from Louisville this evening to be with us. And if you have any questions regarding the building itself or the operations therein, he'd be able to address that. I also have a representative of the landscape architect firm to address any questions that you may have also in that regard. This particular parcel is located at the east end of Gilman Street, and it's on the north side of Gilman Street at the intersection with Allison Way. And it is a 2.07 acre parcel, and the practical hardship that we are having with the development, according to the intent, is that the lot is only 297 feet deep. And the proposed use is for a racing type facility who has the haulers and the trailers. And by sticking to the 50-foot building setback line, there's just inadequate area to maneuver those vehicles on the north side of the building. And on the north side of the building, there's 5 overhead doors for that purpose. So what we are requesting in particular is a reduction of the building setback line, the front setback line, from 50 feet to 20 feet. And we're also requesting that there would be no landscaping required along the north face of the building. And it's simply, again, to give us more room to maneuver these large vehicles. The reduction of the front setback line, we're still able to keep the streetscape requirement and the planting materials around the perimeter of the building. So we think it will give a good feel and a good look along that corridor. And if you look at the rendering on the front handout, these are the same things that you have in your packet, but you can see where the front face of the building actually lines up with the parking of the Delara area. So we think it fits the area, and we are happy to see that DMD is supporting this petition, and based on that, we request your consideration and approval, and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So, similar to our previous petitioner, we have a issue with the address.
Yes.
The address of record is 4300 West 10th Street, and it's quite obvious we are not on 10th Street.
Yeah, we'd be,
So we need to
what are the appropriate procedures?
figure out how to assign the appropriate address
Yeah,
to the property to be a Gilman Street
Yeah, I'll
address.
consult with Ms. Blackham, figure out what the proper procedure is for that purpose.
Okay. And then a second question I have, would the petitioner be okay with submitting for approval the finishes or the materials for the exterior of the building prior to the construction?
Yes, we still have to go before the special hearing examiner.
Okay.
So we can provide that at that time.
But that'd be a condition we would place on a potential approval, is that the town would have the authority to approve the finishes that are submitted for the structure.
Yeah, we don't have any issues with that.
Okay.
Be more than happy.
So is this a multi-use building where you're hoping to attract future race teams in?
Let me have Mr. Ricky address that for you.
Okay.
Come on up.
For the record, Brent Rickey with Able Construction, also representing Sebring and Able Motorsports, address 2401 Stanley Galt Parkway for Louisville, Kentucky, 40223. To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, the intent is that our own motorsport team would be, at this time, the sole user of this facility.
Okay.
We also have the intent that we could use this facility to also have an extension office for our construction group. We are currently located, our home base is in Louisville, Kentucky, and we have a growing interest in the Indianapolis area, so we're hoping that this could be a dual-use facility for both our construction group and also for our motorsport group.
So if it were to be a dual use, would the outside rear parking area become a storage lot of leftover materials or equipment or?
That would not
Things
be
of that nature.
the intent of this property. This would be more used as a extension office,
Okay.
not for, construction vehicles and trailers for the construction group. This would be more of an office facility,
Okay.
strictly for the construction group.
So the elevation shows potential of 5 different signs on the building, but more than likely you'll have a single sign on there unless you split half of it for racing and half of it for construction.
As I said before, the intent is that this would be a multi-purpose facility for our race team and for our construction group right now. We have allocated space available as growth opportunity for possible future tenants, other race teams. Not fully sure, how that would work out, but the intent is right now to use it as our for our own race team.
Just curious, what type of racing are you involved in?
Able Motorsports currently is in open wheel racing. They are we just won the F3 championship this past year, and several other racing competitions, which is a big draw for us to be in Indianapolis, so close to the track. So
Sure.
it's a big plug to be so close and surrounded by great neighbors such as Delara and Juncos, which is on the south side of Gilman Street. So it's a great opportunity for us to be here.
Nice, thank you.
Yep.
I have nothing more to add.
Nothing more to add? Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for the petitioner?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak for or against the current petition? Seeing none, we'll hear again from Ms. Blackham from DMD.
All right, good evening again. Staff is again recommending approval of the requests that were made with this petition. The first one, the setback, and the fact that they're also requesting no landscaping on the north side, and for practical purposes, there's no reason to have it along that north side. But what they are doing is they are landscaping the rear yard, and by pushing that building forward, then it eliminates, which staff believes would be appropriate, eliminates parking in the front yard. And in lieu of that, then they're going to be putting some landscaping. So staff believes that the reduction in that front setback and with the landscaping actually is a better streetscape than what you might see along that Gilman Street right now. And so for those reasons, staff believes that both of these variances are supportable. I will note that there was, when they initially filed the site plan, this file dated January the 4th, that we determined that trash enclosure encroached into the setback in the rear. I spoke with Mike about that, and he sent an amended site plan. I don't know if you have the amended one in front of you, but it is in the staff report that shows they moved that out of the setback. And so there would not be a need for that variance, and with that, staff would be glad to answer any questions that you have.
No.
Again, Mr. Sells will confer with you about the
Yeah, the
the address situation again. That
Yeah. That keeps coming up when I come out
This-
here. We just need to get it
I
resolved.
looked
and
at
then
that
we'll
as,
take care
it's
of
like, this isn't on 10th Street.
that. Oh, I know it isn't. Yeah, and in fact, when I did the site visit, it's nice that I've got a map when I go there, because I would have been looking along 10th Street for that, and not being able to find it, so yes, it is.
You have any questions, Steve?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further to add, Mr. Sells?
No, sir.
No? Now, we'll vote on petition DBS 2019 DBS 002.
And in regards to petition 2019 DVS 002, passes 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening?
Good evening. My name's John Reller, and I own the property at 5503 West 16th Street. You may recall on November 7th, I appeared before you and requested a side yard setback variance to allow for a carport to a house I'm remodeling to live in, and a variance from the maximum open area requirement from 70% to 65%. Both of these requests were approved 5-0, and since that time, we've made a few changes which I'd like to explain. We recognized that the contractor we had been working with was not capable of handling a project of this size and scope, and determined a change needed to be made. Following some research, we've identified the William Gordon Group to be our contractor and are extremely impressed with their professional experience, organization, and most importantly, the desire to understand our vision and assist in completing this project to our satisfaction. The president of William Gordon Group, Bill Brocious, is here with me today, and Bill has extensive experience in working with historic structures and has brought to this project architectural knowledge and a great desire to assist us in remodeling this structure correctly. As I mentioned in my November 7th presentation, we're focused on a design which will complement this 1949 structure and the neighborhood. Our desire is to end up with a simple home which highlights the craftsman bungalow design. Bill recognized that our proposed roof line and large front porch didn't really fit this desire and has made some minor architectural modifications which we'd like to pursue. On the drawings which you have been handed out includes the previous front view and the revised elevation. You will note that the change in roof line and smaller front porch. Additionally, the roof line in the rear has been straightened out which is more in keeping with the simplicity of character that the craftsman's known for. I had originally proposed the roof line to have multiple angles, which was a mistake. Straightening out the roof in the rear has slightly increased the total square footage of the back room addition because the back extension no longer steps in but goes straight back. This was done solely to conform to the craftsman design and does not infringe on any setback requirements. All other aspects of our previously presented design are unchanged. And because of this modification, I'm coming and respectively requesting an administrative approval to these modifications. And both Bill and I are available if you have any questions.
I know you've already received a response from the board with regard to the administrative approval, and it was declined. And one of the reasons, from my viewpoint anyway, is the fact that the hip roof that was originally proposed for the carport is much more open feeling to the neighbor next door. It doesn't infringe upon their view or the open space in that area. And this new gable roof that you've brought to us creates more of a wall effect against the neighbor. And it appears in the drawing that it's extending quite a bit further beyond the columns than the original plan that we approved.
That appearance is just because the columns have moved in. We're no more, and actually I think we're a little less than what we got approval for. And if you would like us to pull that roof line to be in line with what was previously proposed, we're willing to do that. It's just from an architectural standpoint been recommended to me to make the change. I personally don't care.
A gable roof line will not be approved for the reasons I stated, and secondary, that if the neighbor decided to place a fence right on the property line, you would have zero accessibility to doing any kind of maintenance or care to that structure.
That's fine. The fence exists today, and it is on the property line, and if you'd like us to change that roof line back. Now, are we only talking about the carport, or are we talking about the
Just
house itself?
The only part of the structure we have any say on is the carport, because that's the only part that the variance applies to. The rest of the structure is outside of the realm of this variance.
I've reviewed with with the property owner. We've developed a pretty good friendship. Would it matter to you if I had a statement from him saying that he approved this plan? Because he wanted me to do that, and I'm like, I don't need to get you to sign a petition.
He is the current owner,
Yes, he is.
but properties do sell.
Oh, that's fine. So,
And because of that, I don't want to place a hardship on any future owners by
hey,
having
that's
this
fine.
12 to 15-foot high wall
Right?
essentially on the property line.
You can certainly hit that.
Sure.
No problem.
So, and personally, I thought the original design for the front porch was much more appealing
Me too.
than the shortened up
Yeah,
porch. But we don't have any control over the rest of the structure or the design.
Right.
But the carport roof line, a hip roof would be acceptable, which is what you originally submitted and what was originally approved.
we're
You're open.
more than accommodating to make that
Okay.
change, and I just want to get the house done so I can live in it.
Sure. So as long as that roof line goes back to hip construction that's submitted and approved, you're good to go.
Could you circle on it just so there's no misunderstanding that it's this right here. And you want it to be not that, but that?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. You're correct. So the roof of the carport should revert back to the original drawings that were submitted, and that's a hip roof design. And it's also in keeping with what you have on the garage. The current existing garage
Good
is
point,
hip
yeah.
roofed. So. Anything else?
That's great. So for administrative approval, would you like us to resubmit plans that
As long as
incorporate
you-
that?
As long as you submit a drawing for permitting that indicates the hip roof design, there will not be any issue. But if you would like a letter from the board indicating that, we will generate a letter and send it to you.
It's all you.
Yeah, that's up to you. We can submit right to John and.
Yep.
that's
And
okay.
I can communicate with John that the hip roof is perfectly fine, and
And we're referring to John Merritt.
John Merritt, our
Very
building
good.
inspector.
Yes.
That sounds perfect. Thank you.
And just a point, John is a fabulous asset to this community. It's very difficult to get the things done that need to be done, and he does it in a professional manner, and I just want to recognize him because there's a little bit of a challenge to get these approvals, and he's quite the professional, and the city should be glad to have a man like that on the team.
I thank you for your comments, and I'll be sure to pass that along to him if he's not watching us this evening.
Very
I'm
good.
sure he's not.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the board? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 7:37.